Thank you. Good start, isn't it? Forget to put that down. Thanks to everyone for attending the Planning Committee, Tuesday the 26th of March 2024. I'm Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the Committee. Councillor Hilton is the Vice Chair. Please note the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. If you're in attendance as a member of the public who's registered to speak, please note you have a time limit of up to 3 minutes. The legal officer will operate a stopwatch and confirm when your time runs out. You should then finish, or if you're in the middle of making a point, wind up within a few seconds and finish speaking. Otherwise, your microphone will be muted. To assist in following this evening's proceedings, a pack's been prepared and is available online, containing each item's report, plans, presentations and any addendum. After officers have presented the report and speakers have made representations, I'll invite members to make any comments. If you want to speak, please raise your hand when invited to speak. Remember to use your microphone, just like I didn't, and reference the paragraph number so we can all follow. Please keep in mind that some people require closed captions and/or lip reading to follow the proceedings, so please speak slowly, clearly, and do keep your hands away from your mouth. Please can everyone ensure phones are turned to silent. We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in. Okay, moving on. Item 1, apologies. Apologies have been received from Councillor Ainsworth and Councillor Platt and Councillor Derbyshire. That's it. Okay. Declarations of any interests. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters on the agenda. If you have such an interest, you must withdraw from the meeting. Normally, you should leave the room before business starts to be discussed, but you do, however, have the same rights to speak as a member of the public and may remain in the room to enable you to exercise that right and leave immediately. In either case, you must not seek to improperly influence a decision on the matter. Item 2, minutes of the meeting Tuesday the 5th of March. Is that a true and correct record? Somebody, thank you. Somebody second that? All those in favour? Thank you. Planning applications to be determined. The speaking arrangements for planning are as follows. The officers will summarise the report and registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order. Objector, supporter, parish town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for 3 minutes, apart from a ward councillor who may speak for up to 5. In the event that all speakers against an application, as chair, I will grant the applicant or representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak remain quiet throughout the proceedings. With that, we're moving on to item 3A. The Crown Station Road, Croston, pages 5 to 36, with an update on your addendum. Daniel's going to present this item. Recommendation, outline planning permission granted subject to conditions. I have 2 registered speakers, the objector Melanie Christie and the agent Kat McMaster. Daniel, can you present the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. The application site is located within the settlement of Croston, which is allocated under policy V2 of the local plan. The site is located on the western side of Station Road and is currently occupied by the Crown Pub. On the site is the existing building of the Crown Pub, which is a 2-storey property fronting the road with single-storey attachments and outbuildings to the rear. The site is served by an existing access to the south of the building, given access to parking to the rear and also a rear beer garden. This application seeks full planning permission for the demolition of the existing pub building and proposes a convenience store / cafe and a small use class E unit attached. The application also proposes 28 car parking spaces, an additional 2 EV charging spaces, 2 motorcycle spaces and cycle stands outside the building. The proposal would result in the loss of a community facility. The pub has been closed for a number of years and there are other pubs within close proximity walking distance to the site. There was attempts to also sell the business as a going concern and this has been unsuccessful. So for these reasons and the reasons justified within the report, the loss to community facility has been justified. The application proposes a new access by demolition of the building and proposing to put the new building further within the site. This will create a wider access to the site. This has been considered by the local highway authority and subject to conditions, one of which is to enter into a section 278 agreement. They have no objections to the proposal. The site is located outside of the conservation area, and the Design and Conservation Officer has no objections to the loss of the building. A noise report was also submitted with the application, which has been considered by the Council's Environmental Health Officers. Subject to conditions, they have no objections to it. Considering neighbouring amenity further, given the existing use of a pub, it's not considered the proposal would have significant impact to neighbouring amenity. The recommendation is subject to a Section 106 agreement to secure off-site biodiversity net gains. For the reasons outlined within the report and subject to conditions and the Section 106 agreement, the recommendation is for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Melanie, would you like to speak now?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Well, progress and development are inevitable. It is crucial that we weigh the impacts, and these are some of the key objections that we have to this proposal. The proposed convenience store's extended operating hours pose a threat to the peace of the village. There will be a constant hum of activity, particularly during early and late hours, and the proposed extending hours extend far beyond those of a public house. We have concerns around the safety and security of the area, particularly during late hours. We already see antisocial behaviour, which remains largely unchecked with a non-existent police presence around the current 2 convenience stores and nearby park. Most significantly, the increase in traffic that the development will bring is a major concern. Croston has narrow and very busy streets. Increased congestion, noise pollution and decreased air quality is not something to take lightly. The store and cafe undoubtedly will attract customers from further afield, and this will negatively impact local traffic flow and exacerbate congestion. 75% of the properties on Station Road have no off-street parking provision, and parking is a huge problem in Croston. The 28 spaces proposed by the co-op are simply not enough, and this has been endorsed by LCC, who have requested additional. The houses directly opposite the site have no off-street parking, and the proposal sees double yellow lines painted outside their house to facilitate commercial vehicle turning circle, leaving them nowhere to park. If you've ever driven down Station Road, you will know what a heavily congested B road it is, with vehicles parked on the road for almost its entire length. Croston simply wasn't built to support its current residency and the amount of traffic we now have. There's no end of large commercial vehicles that use this main route, and traffic comes to a standstill on a daily basis, particularly just down from the Crown where the road bends and narrows. Public transport and emergency vehicles struggle to navigate Station Road, and this proposal jeopardises resident safety and further burdens our already creaking infrastructure. Vehicles regularly need to mount the curb and the narrow footpath to pass through, and within the last 3 months alone, the police have twice been called to tow cars that are parked on the road as buses could not pass through. The co-op's assertion that this development will not bring additional traffic is totally unfounded. It will have to in order to be financially viable. We agree that this site is probably not viable as a public house, and that as there are 3 others in the village. However, we don't agree a convenience store and cafe are necessary. There are 2 other very well-stocked convenience stores, Morrison's and Westhead stores, within a half-a-mile radius of this site, and there are also 2 cafes and numerous pubs and restaurants. Taking all matters into account, a development of this type and scale is totally inappropriate, will bring traffic and parking chaos to already congested village streets. There are alternative uses for this site which would have a far lesser impact, and we urge Chorley Council to prioritise the safety and well-being of the community and refuse the application.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak before you today. The proposed development provides a convenience store and a local cafe with outdoor area, creating an attractive and friendly environment for people to spend time and socialize. Although the Crown Pub served local residents in the past, over the last few years it became a vacant building with an underutilized and overgrown parcel of land that no longer serves its purpose. Furthermore, the presence of 5 pubs within walking distance of the site ensures the area continues to be well served. The proposed scheme would not only provide a convenience store, but will also create a new place for people to meet, have a coffee, and interact with local friends and neighbors in a quality landscape area within few minutes walk from their homes. Developing the site for such purpose would bring it back to life and, in a way, back to its original use as a meeting point for local residents. It will also significantly increase the level of activity in the area, resulting in a reduced risk of crime and increased sense of safety throughout the day and early evening. The Design and Conservation Officer confirmed the current building is of limited value when assessed against Historic England's guidance. Therefore, its loss is not considered to cause substantial harm to the character or appearance of Croston Conservation Area. Notwithstanding the above, in order to preserve the local character, the proposed new build keeps the traditional brick style with pitch roof and gables, which reflect local vernacular. The proposal will allow for forming new access onto Station Road, complete with footpaths and landscaping. Recognizing the importance of maintaining a sense of community at this site, the landscaping has been carefully designed to provide for community interaction, including provision of a community orchard. Seating areas complemented with raised planters and festive lighting are located close to the main entrance of the cafe, away from vehicle movements to encourage dwell time and enhance sense of arrival. The site is situated in a sustainable location with good access to public transport. During the termination, we work closely with officers to ensure the proposed parking and access arrangements are acceptable. The proposal will not only result in reduced operational hours when compared to the previous pub use, but will also introduce appropriate boundary treatment and planting to further mitigate any potential light impact upon neighboring properties. To conclude, the proposed development will make a valued contribution to the retail offer within the area and will encourage local people to socialize in an attractive and friendly environment within a close distance from their homes. You have heard a comprehensive report from your planning officer setting out how the proposed development complies with the development plan and national planning policy, such that we request that you vote in line with your officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, over to you, members. Councillor Whitaker.
Thanks, Chair. Croston is a bit of a unique place around Chorley. I've heard the residents' comments, which I have some sympathy with. On Station Road, it's one of these roads, you really don't need any traffic calming measures on Station Road because you can't go more than 15 miles an hour along there. And I think I don't know how many people around in the room, any members around the room, know Croston very well. Matthew, is it Matthew? The officer. Daniel, sorry, Daniel. Daniel described the thing very well and very clearly, and the applicant talked about it as well. I'm not quite sure how putting a new pub in a little village like Croston will reduce crime, which is what was suggested. So what I'm going to suggest, Chair, if I may, and propose, is that rather than have the debate now, when many members are not familiar with Croston, we perhaps have a site visit so that we could go and have a look at the situation, look at the parking issues, look at the community issues, and the other things that were referred to by both speakers, and then we can come back and debate it properly, Chair. So I'm not trying to cut debate or anything like that. I just want to be respectful. I know Croston very well. It is quite a unique place, and I think we should be careful before we add to another commercial enterprise which will undoubtedly affect things.
Thanks. Anybody else wish to comment? Councillor Southern.
Thank you, Chair. I do know Croston. I know this particular spot very well. I used to live over the road from it. The issue is it's a disused pub. And I'm struggling on a commercial basis to find a reason why I would refuse this, because effectively it's a commercial building going to a commercial building. I do have a lot of sympathy though, however, with residents, particularly over the access and road use on that one there. Station Road is a difficult road. And I think Councillor Whittaker's estimation of speed there is excessive. I spend most of my time sat still when I'm on there. The proposal that's put forward with parking spaces, I would have liked to have seen some more parking spaces there. What I wouldn't want to see is any of the existing residents in the area, not necessarily betterment, but certainly no worse off. I would have liked to have seen some more charge points in there, because obviously the issue we have in Croston Village is, particularly as it's been mentioned, we don't have much off-road parking, and I think a couple of extra charge points in there would have certainly gone some way to alleviating that. However, the actual proposition itself, I'm not opposed to. I think it's in keeping within the village, and as the points that have been addressed by LCC, particularly over the development of this, which I do see problems with, provided those conditions are complied with, I wouldn't have an objection in that, Chair. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Moore, Councillor Snow.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the proposal for a site visit, which is, I know, unusual for me really, but I am reasonably familiar, having recently moved to Moseley, and I know it is pretty horrendous in the mornings and the evenings and all the rest of it. And along that road, it is, diabolical, and it always has been for some time. So I'd like to look at it and in more detail and see how it affects the immediate population, to see the existing shops that I talked about, which I believe are also front onto the pavement, don't have any parking spaces, so people park, jump in, they'll, go shop and then dash out and so on. So that causes, no doubt, I'm sure, will cause some difficulties, and I'd like to go and see and watch how that happens. The thing itself, I have no problem with, as Councillor Southern has said. It's a nice development. It looks good. I'm not sure it needs any more spaces at all, and I'm not in favour of just increasing the electric points at all. But that's another argument. But as I say, I'll stick by seconding the proposal so that I can have a better idea of what's going on.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. Councillor Snow.
I would propose that we approve this application. I think the officer's report is very clear. Yes, I do understand residents' concern about parking. It's awful, Station Road. I am familiar with it, and yes, you can't drive down there at any speed. Actually, I think we're going to be, this development is going to be providing more parking spaces. The nature of a small co-op is that people are in there for short periods of time. It's in and out. I think this is a good reuse of this site. I mean, generally, I'm vehemently opposed to the loss of public houses. Croston is a place which is served by some very nice pubs, and it's obvious in the current commercial sector that this would be hard to maintain its use as a public house. So I'm prepared to move this. I think the officer report highlights all the difficulties that there are with this site. So I'm prepared to move it.
Okay, any more comments? If not, I've got a proposer and a seconder for a site visit, and I've got a proposer for the officer recommendation. So all those in favour of a site visit, please show.
Is it going to go on here?
Yeah. He's pressing like that. Okay.
Yes, Chair, that's 8 for a side visit, 2 against.
We're going to have a 10-minute break now. Okay, an adjournment. So can you pause the meeting, please? If you come to that Behave. Item, thank you for that. Item 3B, I've lost all my papers. How do I manage it? Item 3B. Dickinsons Furniture, 137 to 143 Market Street, pages 37 to 54, with an update on the addendum. Ian's going to present this item, the recommendation that prior approval is required and be granted. I've one registered speaker, the agent Peter Gilks. Okay, Ian, over to you.
Yep, thank you, Chair. This application seeks the Council's prior approval that planning permission is not required for the change of use of the existing retail building at Dickinsons on Market Street to 9 residential apartments under Schedule 2, Part 3, Class MA of the General Permitted Development Order 2015. The site is located at the southern end of Market Street within Chorley Town Centre and comprises a long-established retail premises. The legislation sets out a number of criteria that must be met in order to benefit from the permitted change that's set out by the order. The report sets out that all of these criteria have been met. The legislation also requires that an assessment is carried out in relation to transport impacts, contamination risks, flooding risks, impacts from noise from commercial premises on the intended occupiers, conservation area impacts, the provision of adequate light to habitable rooms, impacts from industrial operations, loss of nursery or healthcare services, and fire safety in relation to tall buildings, which this isn't. The report sets out that the development's considered to be acceptable in relation to all of these matters. In particular, it's noted that the site is located in a highly sustainable location and that Lancashire County Council Highways raised no objection in consideration of the absence of parking provision. The application meets the criteria of the legislation and therefore it's recommended that prior approval is granted, subject to the conditions set out in the report and on the addendum. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, Peter.
Madam Chairman, gentlemen, I represent the family who until recently conducted Dickinson's furniture and carpet business, renowned in the town for almost a century from when it was first started by their grandfather. The premises occupy a prominent flagship position as you enter the town from the south and west and are made up of several former houses to provide spacious and extended accommodation in a somewhat organic arrangement on 3 floors. They are now too large for many alternative trades or occupiers' needs. The intention is to retain retail use of the ground floor, albeit creating smaller, more appropriate and viable sized shops. On the first and second floors, the space will be converted into self-contained apartments that will provide much needed accommodation in the location that is sustainable and close to all amenities. The proposal is also in keeping with the Council's policy of introducing residential accommodation back into the town centre to create activity and economic vitality. It is noted that an objection has been lodged expressing concern for the lack of parking. It is clearly acknowledged the position is sustainable, where residents will not need the use of a car. All amenities are within walking distance, including the bus and rail station. Any additional parking generated by the few residents who might own a car will be indiscernible and is not a reason for the application to be refused. I would also remind you that Lancashire County Council's highway engineer has raised no objection and expressed the opinion the proposed development will not have any significant impact on highway safety, capacity or amenity in the immediate vicinity. I therefore respectfully request that you accept your officer recommendation and approve the application, and I thank you for this opportunity of allowing me to address you. Thank you.
Thank you. It's over to you, members. Councillor G, you indicated.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yes, I have no objection to this. I think it's a long-established building. It's in a prime position. We are desperate for 1 and 2 bedroom apartments in Chorley. I'm glad to see that most of the bedrooms here are going to be two bedroom apartments, which I think is a great need in Chorley. I can't see any problem with the parking in in this area. It will regenerate that part of Chorley that has gone down a little bit. We do have a policy to try to bring more residential areas into Chorley within the town centre. So I have no problem in of moving the officer's recommendation of approval.
Thank you. Councillor Whittam.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to second the officer's recommendation. Whilst there is no parking there, I did notice in the addendum that there was provision for a cycle rack inside the building. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. It's another town centre development for flats that we can't do a great deal with. Again, this has been raised on a number of occasions where we've had public houses, places like that, where there hasn't been sufficient parking. But the point's being made that its proximity to the town centre could well mitigate that. So to that end, I think it's a good use of space, and I think I wouldn't have a problem with the application, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Marwood.
Thank you, Chair. I'll not go over exactly what's been said, but yes, it's a good use of my prime spot, and I'm keen and happy that the ground floor has been left for retail. I just want to make the point that I hope it will be appropriate retail that's considered, whether it's for a change of use or whatever, in so much as they'll take consideration into the fact that people will be living above. So I'd like it to, as I say, appropriate retail underneath. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments, or should I move to the vote? Okay, we'll move to the vote, please.
Yes, Chair, that's a unanimous vote in favour of the application.
Thank you. Moving on, item 3C, Whalleys Farm, Preston Road, Charnock. Richard, pages 55 to 76. Daniel's going to present this item. The officer recommendation outline planning permission is granted, subject to conditions, and I have no registered speakers. Over to you, Daniel.
Thank you, Chair. The application site is located within the Greenbelt on the southwestern side of Preston Road. The site comprises of a bungalow to the western part and a single-storey storage building, with the remaining being hard-standard. The site has lawful use for a haulage yard. This application seeks outline consent with access for 3 dwellings on the site. An indicative plan has been submitted showing that 3 dwellings can be located within the site, allowing adequate space between and private amenity area for each dwelling. A condition is also suggested to restrict the height and volume of the dwelling, given its location within the green belt. The site would use the existing access, which the Highway Authority have no objection to. In terms of consideration for the green belt, while the site is previously developed land, because of the existing volume of the building and the proposed volumes of 3 dwellings, the impact would be, it would have a greater impact, on the openness of the green belt, and should therefore only be permitted in very special circumstances. Very special circumstances have been demonstrated in this case, given the existing site use of a haulage yard. There would be an improvement visually, and the site could also have a number of vehicles on there, which, while they are not buildings themselves, would have an impact on the openness. This application seeks outline consent for the principal. The other remaining matters will be considered at reserved matter stage for the reasons outlined within the report and subject to conditions, a recommendation of approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, councillors. Councillor Hilton, Councillor Whitaker.
Thank you, Chair. I know this area quite well. It's close to my ward. I'm quite satisfied with the special circumstances being met by what the officers have said. This is quite an industrial-looking area from the road, and I think this will be a significant improvement to the visual amenity. Bungalows are quite few and far between in the area as well, so it's welcome that there are going to be bungalows on that site. I think it will just be an improvement to the area, so I'm very much in favour, and I'd like to move officer recommendations. Thank you.
Councillor Whitaker.
Thanks, Chair. I know the area. I'm very happy with the proposal. I'm sorry that the industry's going, but that's the way these days. But this will be an improvement on the road frontage. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor France, Councillor G, Councillor Southern.
Just very quickly, I support everything Councillor London said. It's nice to see some bungalows built in villages, so I fully support this application.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just to reiterate the points being made by fellow councillors, it's a good use of an industrial site. It's a vast improvement on that one there, and as I said, bungalows are sought after, and I have no problem with this application.
Move to the vote, please.
Yes, Chair, that's unanimous vote in favour of the application.
77 to 94. Ian's going to present this item. The recommendation is that prior approval is required and be granted. I've no registered speakers, so Ian, would you present the report, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks the Council's prior approval that planning permission is not required for the change of use of the existing offices at 20 St Thomas's Road to 3 residential apartments under Schedule 2, Part 3, Class MA of the General Permitted Development Order 2015. The site's located close to Chorley Town Centre and comprises a traditional semi-detached building that's used for offices. The legislation sets out a number of criteria that must be met in order to benefit from the permitted change of use set out by the order. The report sets out that all of these criteria have been met. As set out on item 3B, the legislation also requires that an assessment is carried out in relation to a number of other factors which are listed on the item 3B, so I won't go through them again here. The report sets out that the development's considered to be acceptable in relation to all of these matters. In particular, it's noted that the site's located in a highly sustainable location and that County Council Highways consider that parking provision is not necessary for the proposed development in this location. The application meets the criteria of the legislation, is therefore recommended that prior approval is granted, subject to the conditions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Over to you, Councillor G.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Same as the Dickinsons one, I can't see any problem with this one. It's in the centre of town, a one bedroom flat and a 2-bedroom flat, in keeping with the area. So I'm more than happy to accept the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Morwell, Councillor Southern.
It's a question really of officers. If you look at the second photograph where cars are parked at the front, is that official parking or is it just cars are allowed? I've just decided to park on the street because the highways talk about no parking allowed, but I'm just interested if that's official or unofficial, especially as there's a bus stop in front of it. Yeah, that one. That's.
Yeah, through you, Chair.
Yeah.
So there's a drop curb in front of the application building. So at some stage, that access has been enabled by the Highway Authority. That where the two grey 4x4s are actually in the adjacent building, but that area in front of the application building with the for sale sign on it does belong to the application site. It does form part of the application site, so cars can park on there. It obviously requires a manoeuvre to get into those spaces, but they can be used. They're currently used for parking, and they could continue to be used for the parking of vehicles.
And it is the white building we're looking at, not.
It's the building to the left of the grey building with the for sale sign.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm glad
Thanks,
I asked for clarification.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, again, it's a town centre, back to flats, probably going back to where it first started, I guess. don't have a problem with it. As has been pointed out, the drop curb would assist parking in front of the building. Again, it's going back to housing. I have no problem with that, Chair. Thank you.
More comments? Will somebody formally second that, please? I have the proposal. Thanks, Councillor Southern. And we'll move to the vote, please.
Yes, Chair, that's unanimously approved.
Thank you. Item 4, the appeals report, pages 95 to 96. Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Members are requested to note the contents of the appeals report, which isn't particularly extensive. We've only received one appeal during the period, and we've not received any decisions during that 3-week period.
Thank you. Any urgent business? Just one thing. Just want to tell members and to thank Dave for all his work. This is his very last meeting. That's why he's smiling so much. He's worked for the council, and I'd say Trouble Chorley, for, shall we say, more than years than we care to mention. Yes. Is that fair enough? Yes. So I wish you well for the future, and thanks for all your work. And with that, the meeting's closed and you can go home. Thank you.